going to talk about creating a transformative RILA. My husband and I are both in education, and so we look to the education best practices. And so some of the best practices in education right now, cooperative learning. So in teams we do that, right? We all pretty much do that. Project-based learning, we've been talking about that. The experiential learning is one of the big things now to make sure to do, because the students will learn better through the projects. And then there's this transformative learning concept. And so for transformative learning, there are 3 different dimensions. There's the psychological dimension, which means that there needs to be a change in the understanding of their self, which I think we often do in RILA. I think a lot of them leave feeling differently about themselves than when they come in. There's the conviction dimension, revision of beliefs about the world and how they connect to it. So and I think we, RILA folks, we try very hard to make sure like they're connected with Rotary, and they start seeing the bigger picture. And then there's the behavioral dimension. So when they actually leave, there should be a change in lifestyle, change in behavior. And we know that does happen with a lot of them. You've heard from parents that happens. So this is transformative learning, and these are the 3 dimensions of it. Transformation is an intimate process, and that is one of the key things, I think, to having a truly, yes?
What was the 3rd one? Behavioral?
Yes, behavioral. And then so this girl right here, I know she looks like she's praying. She's actually on the labyrinth. I don't know if she's praying. The process of the intimate process, if praying is very important to somebody, they're going to need to do that as part of this process. We don't, Rotary is not tied to any religion, so of course we're not trying to bring any religion to them, but whatever is meaningful to them needs to stay with them through this process. So transformation, so these are the criteria that I have found that are necessary for a truly transformative RILA. It must be personal, we talked about the intimate process, but it must be personal. They must feel that it is for them and about them. It must be sequential versus topical. So rather than saying, I mean, Dee talked about learning outcomes, instead of saying, as opposed to saying, I want them to learn this, this, and this, and this, and check, 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 everything builds on something else so that by the end, it's for the whole person. It must contain a framework of safety and love. So for them to really have that intimate process, they need to feel safe and like they can share. And it must provide adequate tools to implement the behavioral changes, which is, I think, what RILA has always been very good at, teaching those leadership skills and qualities. They need those in order to go out there and do those changes, make those changes. I find that it is most powerful when it is facilitated by their peers. And just a few years older, the way the counselor, the counseling staff, the student staff, that's very, very powerful. I think it is most effective when it includes debriefs that support the above. And we had a couple presentations yesterday on debriefs, which is very good for that. And I find it also most complete when it involves all 5 senses. Obviously, with the camp, you have some visuals that are part of it that are different than their normal experiences of everyday life. You've got the different the different smells, but we've also I also add in music to create moods sometimes, and that is a really powerful thing. I mean, if you've ever heard a song that's triggered a memory, it takes you back, and you can just see how that built into a RILA then can make a very powerful change when they go home. The transformative sequence, there's actually a sequence that is backed by research, but that I've also found to be very powerful. And these are the activities that support it. Now, the activities are not magic, but I'll tell you about the activities we do and the components that they have that help fulfill each of those sequence parts. The first one is to create a sense of belonging. And we do this, I think we all pretty much do this when we first get there with the icebreakers and team building. So team identity and presentation. So at these camps, these students will come up with, they have their colors, they wear their colors, they've got their bandanas, but they come up with a name and a way to present themselves. We have this thing about nicknames at our camp. Hi.
Hey.
You're good.
So sorry.
Nicknames, I have found, If you have a kid that comes to you, and this is a lot on the counselors, but if you have a kid who's coming to your camp who is feeling maybe a little timid, and maybe is not the most popular kid back home, a nickname will give them instant access to the group. So we always encourage our student staff to come up with fun nicknames for the campers right away. And then they call them that throughout there. And I mean, we've got some 10 years later, their nickname is still there. And so we just call him, our assistant director is my child, and it's been there for 10 years. And so that is a really powerful thing. And plus the insider traditions. One of the things we got from the International Rally was the penguin races. Does anyone else do penguin races? Yes? Woo! Okay. That is an insider tradition, as is the Y, with the connection of the whole world, which is really cool. Now you're connected to everyone in the world that's been to RILA. Then the creative sense of belonging also, we try to establish with the Rotarian Chili Cook-Off and the RILA reunion that we do each year.
What's the RILA reunion?
A RILA reunion, you have students that say, like, I want to come back to camp, I can't be a counselor maybe this year, but I want to come visit. Well, I had a lot of students doing that, and since we have this chili cook-off on Saturday night, and we have Rotarians coming from all over the state, all over the district, we said, Rilarians, if you want to come back, let us know, and you come to a big reunion on that night. We had like 30, I don't know how many pounds of chili we had, but it was ridiculous amounts of chili. So everybody got to eat, and it was a focused time. And that way I didn't have former Rilarians dropping in throughout the time, and I didn't have time to even talk to them because we were busy doing something else. So we focused the time and just had them show up on Saturday night.
Did they do any presentation or talk or anything?
They hang out, we play some music. It actually was like a big old-fashioned family cookout. And it had that feel to it, and our DJ played some music and just sort of created this atmosphere of family. And then it just got to mingle with the Rotarians too. The second step, reflecting on the past. I think this is a very, very important thing. Oops, I didn't put it together. The thing that's not showing up, I forgot to do. But it's when they first get there, I have them write down their fears and their goals on an index card, and on the one side is their name and team color, and the other side are 3 fears and 3 goals. And I have them pass it into me. And then I read them that night, and I tell them it's just for me. Because there are times, and I've never had it happen before or since, but I had an entire camp one time, I bet you 85 to 90% had a fear of like dismemberment or death. Like some tragic, and I don't know if you've experienced, but in 15 years of doing this, I've had camps just sort of have a personality to them, and that happens with classes too. So they sort of, maybe it's like shy camp, or maybe it is so, whatever's on there, I can sort of gear just subtly some things to it when we're talking, and maybe when we're debriefing. And when I talk to the counselors, I say, I'm not going to be specific with who wrote what. But we've got a lot of this going on, and we need to give these kids what they need. So I like having that information up front, but it also causes them to reflect.
How many conferees do you have at a time?
How many what?
Conferees.
Oh, campers? 100, about 100. And in Oklahoma, and we have 150 in Texas.
Do you read everyone's card, or do you just randomly?
No, I read them all. I read them all. They don't take long. I mean, they're like just a few little, words. They don't have a paragraph or anything. But I feel like it's my responsibility to make sure that I give them what they need.
If you're not reading them out loud to
No.
everybody, you're reading them to yourself.
When I go back to my cabin that night, when it's just me, I thumb through them, and then the next morning at the staff meeting, I say, this is some issues we have in this camp, and we need to make sure this is addressed throughout the week. The bonfire. The first night's bonfire, we have a special program that we go through, and but it culminates with another index card. I have a thing for index cards, and I have them. We go through a session where they go through a bunch of emotions. I take them through a bunch of emotions, and then talk about how sometimes when we're feeling one way, we make a decision that we regret when we're feeling a different way, and oftentimes that stops us from moving forward. So what we have them do then is fold it in half. It's just for them. They're going to write down something that they regret. Something that they regret doing. This is a really strong reflection. And before then, we have our counselors read some things to kind of get them to this point. And then we have them throw it in the fire and let it go.
That's cool.
And we play Shake It Out.
What's Shake It Out?
Shake it out, shake it out. Did that sound? It's a great song.
Me too.
Another thing that we do for reflecting on the past is a team roundup. That's our nightly debrief. And the counselors have specific questions to kind of be springboards to go on, and they talk about what they did each day and how that applies to their life. And when they first get there, they're talking about how it applies to their life before. And we'll get to later. But, and then we do this leadership meditation, which I kind of alluded to before, but it is very powerful reflection on the day. So we play, it's a feng shui sort of music, and one of the counselors reads it and has them breathe deeply, close their eyes, and they concentrate on their hands. What did my hands do to help others today? And it puts the control of their decisions in them. So we do this each night before they go to bed. It's also very calming before they go to bed. We finally go right to sleep. There you go, for your hands. Okay, the next step, level the playing field. Because you've got kids that are walking in with a great amount of confidence, and you've got kids that walk in they've got their heads held so low, and they can't even believe they're there. They're so scared to be there. So, I heard a lot of people do ropes, right? Mm-hmm. Ropes is one of the greatest levelers I've ever seen. Because you've got the kid who comes in cocky, who can't hardly make it up the pole, and he comes down, he's humbled a little bit, or she. And then you've got the kid who may make it up the pole barely, but walked in and thinking that she or he could never do that. So what you have by the end is a little bit more of a similarity. The other thing that we do, you see this kid right here, we have these series of team challenges. And these team challenges are created so that by the end of the week, everyone will have needed to win something for their team. They use all different kinds of, for every personality type, not every single one. Not every single, you won't participate in every single thing. But by the end, you'll need everybody. So this particular one we do right after ropes, because they're already sweaty and gross, and we tell them to bring something they can get stained. And we have an obstacle course with lots of chocolate pudding. And this kid is doing this sloppy slip and slide. And then they have to jump into a big, giant blow-up pool of green slime, which is cornstarch and water and food coloring. And they have to, there are 4 different parts to these little rings, and they have to do a relay and get all 4 parts and see whoever gets the fastest. So each one of these team challenges has different points that they can win, and then we see by the end of the week who wins the fantastic plastic medals. But I love this particular activity as a leveler, because no one can be cocky covered in chocolate pudding. They all look the same. And you're talking about the girls that don't worry about their makeup. They don't worry about their makeup after this. After this event, the next day they wake up and they're like, whatever. They're covered in slime. And I also think it brings them back to play, to that playfulness that they often forget when they're teenagers. The fourth step is discovery of personal qualities and strengths and those in others, which I think most of you do a lot of these. The personality instruments, in Oklahoma we do Myers-Briggs, and in Texas they like the DISC, but we've switched over to an animal version of DISC. So we have this directing lion and interacting porpoise, and it's just a little bit easier for them to remember. And in both cases, we do no presentation of what those mean. We just have them simply go into different groups and do an activity, and then have them discuss the differences, the similarities, and through the questioning, they figure out what that means. For example, like for the N's and the S's on the Myers-Briggs, I might ask, I might say something like this. All the S's over here and all the N's over here, and I'll break them up into smaller groups. So I might say, tell me about this camp. So if you're familiar with Myers-Briggs, the intuitive people are going to talk about the camp. It's like Ryla and all the stuff that we're doing, and this big. And then the sensory folks are going to talk about it's buggy, And they'll be a little bit, they'll be more sensory, more concrete with it. And so then we say, okay, what's different? And then, but you can also bring in stuff that freaks them out. Like, okay, and raise your hand if you have unexplained bruises often. And they're like, oh! We have a lot of fun with that. But we did the disc in Texas, and it worked out great. They designed their own exhibit for their animal. And then we saw how differently they went about designing it and what the designs were. Well, and I was going to also say on the personality instruments, we presenting it as a comparison, but then how do we work together? You need N's, you need those S's. S's, you need those N's. Here's why. They're seeing what you don't see. And the T's and the F's, they use different languages. They use a different language, and that's all that's going on. So if you can translate in your head, you've already bypassed so many communication issues. Like if you ask a T, well, how do you feel about this? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. So I wanted to make sure that was brought up. And character mart is another thing, and they are these little cards, which y'all can look at, but they 52 different character qualities, and they go shopping for 5 that are the most important to them. And then they go back, these are times that we have mixed teams, very small mixed teams, and like five people. And then they have chit-chat at the checkout lane. And they discuss these character qualities and why they're important to them. But they're not just talking about themselves, they're also listening to what's important to other people, which is incredible. And then how do we get character? And we just go deeper and deeper in the debrief of it. So these are available for you guys to look at if you want. So character mart is one thing they really like. Vita cuisine is, there's nothing that magical about it except that it's a pretty intense activity. It's 6 different countries and the cuisines from the 6 different countries. It's actually a lot about nutrition. We don't really say a lot about nutrition, but they will get it by the end because they have to fill all the daily requirements for vitamins, but not go over the fat, grams, calories, sodium, and everything else from the cultural food. And they've got little laminated things like onions or whatever, and then you turn on the back and it says what is in each one of those. But they have to figure out then, together as a team, another mixed group opportunity, how to make a day's worth of food with getting all of their nutrition and not going over these other things. So we don't really overtly talk about it, but it's something that in our society is a real issue. So they're starting to see what's actually in their food.
Did you purchase the set somewhere?
I made it.
You just made it.
Yeah, I made it.
Is that available?
Yes. It will be soon. I want to tweak it a little bit so that it's easier to put together. And then team challenges, the campaign, and the other team challenges, obviously. So the campaign is, like many Rylas, when I inherited this, the one in Oklahoma, we had a dance. And much like Dee, it took me a couple years, and I went, why are we doing a dance? Why are we? And so instead of the dance, we started doing the campaign. And it's a pirate treasure hunt. And there are 37 individual games. I brought some for you guys to look at. 37 individual games for 12 teams. But they get their initial clue, and it's all read very mysteriously to them. And they get their first clue, and then they have to go find it on the treasure map where it is. And of course, the counselors, all the staff, and Rotarians are busy facilitating games. So it's just the teams. On all the team challenges, it's just the teams that have to work together. But they have to figure out whose strengths are what. One of the cool things about this game that I found, and again, there's no magic necessarily in the game, but one of the components that makes it work is that it's stressful. It's not a bad stress, but it's stressful, it's timed. And each one of these different games, each team has 3. And then after they complete their 3, they can maybe steal other people's jewels. So they're in a hurry to not only get done and steal other jewels, but so that their jewels aren't stolen. But that adds a level of stress that exacerbates the issues that the teams have been having. And all of a sudden, they have to figure it out if they want to win. So it takes about an hour and a half or so, 2 hours with the debrief, and then after they're all done, we come back and we talk about strategies. What was your strategy? They'll just say, oh, we have none. And then we had to figure it out. Well, we were running everywhere, and we couldn't figure out the map, and we weren't listening to each other, but they come up with all of the stuff that we would otherwise be teaching them about teamwork and how to listen to each other and all of that. They figure it out. So this one I've been doing since 2003, and it ranks about the same as the ropes course as far as fun. They have a lot of fun with it. So then, through all of these different activities, that's great. They have this wonderful information now. Now they know how to work together as a team. They know how to find the strengths in other people, but that doesn't really help unless we know how to apply it. So the first step then is to apply it at the camp. So applying at the camp, there are 2 more team challenges after those other ones that are pretty, they figured out quickly who's going to do what. So these are 2 other team challenges. They do that. And strategizing, now I worked with, we did the one that Dee did yesterday with the spaceship. That's one of the strategizing. And then what was the one that he was talking about yesterday with the nuclear reactor thing or whatever it is?
Toxic waste.
Yeah, toxic waste, thank you. So that's one of those. I think that's this picture right here that they're doing. So anyway, and there's the river thing. The spaceship. But that they do with mixed teams as well. So they do all the team challenges with their own team, but we try to then put them with other teams, and then the debrief, part of the debrief of that is, was it more difficult? You don't know, you didn't know the strengths of those other people. And were you able to figure that out? So they start working on that. So they're applying the information that they've learned at the camp. But then the next step, it doesn't stop at the camp. We apply it to home. And because we want them to continue to use those things. So we tie it to there. So the team roundup, obviously the debrief at night, we talk about how this relates to home. But it came up again because at this point, they start relating it to what it's going to be like when they go home. So whereas when they first came in, the team roundups, they started relating it to what it was, and now they're starting, this is how I will apply it when I get home. This one we started last year, and this was the students. I listened to them, the student staff, and I always say, like, keep us current. Like, so the nutrition was one thing they wanted in there, because that's eating and nutrition. That's a big thing the kids have issues with today. This is another one, ecology, and being green. So for this one, we asked all of our student staff, or all of our staff, to bring recyclable material, clean recyclable material. And their teams, this is another team challenge, they have to build something with that is useful now, that is attractive, and that is innovative. And they're judged on those 3 criteria. And they have so much fun with that. I would have never guessed that they would have had